So today I'm talking to artist CHEN about EVERMIND. Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks, and this is a special episode, a special video. Today I am interviewing artist CHEN about his current Kickstarter for a project called EVERMIND. Now, if you're not familiar with Sean's work, I will go ahead and read through his bio. So CHEN's meteoric rise in the comic book world began when he was mentored by legendary artist Barry Windsor Smith. Recruited by Valiant Comics, his debut comic, Rye and the Future Force, sold over 1 million copies, cementing his status as a rising star. And after an epic run on Valiant's X-O Man of War, Sean joined Marvel, where he was entrusted with the relaunch of Iron Man. A successful 3-year run on the title solidified his legacy as a seminal artist for the Armored Avenger. Stints on X-Men, Avengers, Elektra, as well as Marvel's flagship character Wolverine, elevated Sean's status as a comic book legend. His most ambitious project to date is EVERMIND, a passion project that brings two renowned creatives from the comic book and entertainment industries together in pursuit of a shared vision. And here to talk with me today about it is CHEN. Welcome to the channel, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And thanks for giving me a platform to kind of promote the book a little bit.
Oh, yeah, it's no problem at all. I'm really excited to have you and to talk about EVERMIND. But before we do, just for those who may not be as familiar with your career, could you take us through just a quick backstory of how we got here?
Okay, so I brought a portfolio to San Diego Comic-Con and showed it to Barry Windsor Smith. And he liked what he saw, and he asked me to come on board Valiant. So I kind of worked my way through different books at Valiant. So my first one was Rye and the Future Force, number 9, which I think you said sold probably around 900,000 copies.
Wow.
So, for a very first book, I thought it was the greatest industry in the world. But we didn't really know that it was kind of a bubble, it wouldn't last forever. And then from there, because I finally ended up on X-O Man of War at Valiant, and X-O Man of War is very similar to Iron Man. So right about that time, Iron Man did this thing where the characters went over to Image. They kind of licensed it out to Image. And then when they came back from Image, all eyes were kind of on who was going to take over those books. I think there was Avengers, Fantastic Four, Iron Man, and one other book. So I was chosen to be the artist on Iron Man. A lot of it's because of my history with X-O Man of War. And people can kind of really see what it's going to look like. And it really helped with the editors who knew I could probably do that book and handle the technology and the shiny armor stuff.
Right.
And then kind of worked at Marvel for about a decade more, just bouncing around with different characters. Eventually I went on to Wolverine after Iron Man. And then after that, I did some Elektra, some Spider-Man, some Avengers, a little bit of everything. Ended up on Avengers Academy. And then I left comics for a while, mostly because I didn't feel like I was that fast of an artist. Then I kind of moved on to advertising being very similar to comics because I was doing storyboards for commercials. And then kind of missed comics. So I kind of came back in, kind of bounced around either DC or Marvel, doing little projects here or there. Then I started trying to kind of dabble in writing my own stuff. So that kind of brings us to where we are now.
Got you. Super awesome. So with where we are now, of course, we're talking about EVERMIND, and we've got a Kickstarter campaign going. As the time this goes live, we've got about a week left in the campaign. And I mean, you guys have been crushing it. We've met goal, so we don't have to worry about whether or not the book's going to come out. At this point, it's just seeing how far the campaign can go. But tell me a little bit about how this idea came together.
Okay, so I'm very new to writing. So the first writing thing I did was on Instagram. I put out a comic just by releasing the pages on Instagram for free. And that story I kind of wrote myself, and just to kind of see, I love writing, but I didn't know whether I could do it. But that really went over really well. So after about 60 pages of that comic that was put out for free, it got published in two places. So Heavy Metal picked it up and published it. And then this publisher called Next Chapter Press also published it. So that gave me a real shot in the arm that maybe I can maybe I can do a writing. And so that same publisher who published the book asked me if I had anything else, because he was starting up a comic book imprint. And he was looking through my Instagram and saw this picture that I did, an image of a robot gorilla, and a female robot in the same scene. And it looked like there was a story behind it because of the way it's drawn. It looked like the cover to a comic, but really it was just a portfolio piece for me to draw robot, mechanical, sexy girls and gorillas and stuff. But he thought that there was a story behind it. So we kind of played this kind of hypothetical game where, like, if you had to tell like an elevator pitch of what the story's about, what would you say? Mm-hmm. And then we kind of play this game, and I would come up with more and more until we got to a point where the story seemed to be really exciting. Like, it had great characters and a great premise, a very new and creative idea that kind of surrounded it and the world it was in. And then one day he told me, okay, so it's time to start doing this book. And, for me, it's a fun exercise. I like to dabble in writing, mm-hmm. but then actually taking money for it and putting on a schedule, that's a whole different ballgame.
Right.
But, we took it so far that it was just, one step more is actually to put it in production. So we started doing that. And I asked my publisher, like, who he thought the main character should look like. Mm-hmm. And he says, why don't you draw Daniel Wu? Because I like Daniel Wu. So I was like, fine, I'll do that. And then when we got to about issue 3, he was thinking like, well, I'm going to show this to Daniel Wu because I know his people, and then maybe he'll come on board and then mm-hmm. help develop the story. So he showed it to Daniel Wu, and Daniel Wu liked it. So he was on board, and then he's helping write it. So that that brings us to where we are now. It's kind of co-creating the story together. That's on Kickstarter.
Wow, that is awesome. So I'm gonna share the campaign here on the screen for a second, and so we'll talk about what EVERMIND is. And so, well, I could read the pitch on the screen, but I'll let you introduce it for us.
Okay. Well, it's a sci-fi story that takes place in the near future, and it really is a character-focused story, because a lot of times when you have sci-fi, it's mostly about plot because of the, like the fighting robots and laser blasts and everything. So with this one, this one thing you'll notice about it is that it's a very character-driven story. So it's this really brilliant scientist who has this relentless pursuit of success, and that leads him to this technological breakthrough that he kind of unleashes onto the world. And so it's sort of like opening this Pandora's box that really kind of upends the entire world, and he has to work very hard to kind of once he realizes the error of his ways, to kind of set everything right again. And he has to go to extreme length to do that, including using the technology on himself. So that's the general overview of the idea. So you can see there's different settings in this story, which seem kind of very separate, because there's a theme park, and then there's, the theme park is like Disneyland in the future. Right. But then underneath the theme park is sort of like what they call Underworld, which is the adult version of Disney, because Disney is for like kids, primarily girls, because of all the princesses. So in order to make even more money, they have the downstairs part underground, where it becomes like a Las Vegas, like strip clubs and stuff. And then like there's a little bit that takes place in a military arena. So it's got a lot in there. But ultimately, I think if you read it, that you would understand what the connection is between all of them, and it doesn't really seem like very scattered. So it all comes together and makes sense. And at the heart of it is that the relationship of this brilliant scientist and his estranged daughter, who they can't seem to get along because they're on different sides of the ideological spectrum.
Right.
Yeah, so she's like an activist that works to make sure that science is not abused by corporation. And then he's sort of like a scientist who is kind of abusing science in this corporation. Yeah. So there's a huge divide between them, and you wonder if it's ever going to get closed. So this is what that story is about, is that them hopefully coming together again, and him kind of becoming a better person. So.
Right. Yeah, I got a chance to read the first issue before our talk, and I got to say it was great. First off, I really enjoyed it, but all the elements, I was telling you beforehand that I only read the first issue because I get excited I'll spoil stuff. So I only read the first issue, so I can't spoil any details for anyone. But everything that you laid out, everything in the pitch, it's all there in that first issue. And it makes sense in such a way, right? Like you said, those disparate worlds really connect in meaningful ways between the Bobo world and Underworld, like all of it. It's awesome. And even at the heart of it, there's this emotional core with whether it's the father-daughter relationship, the scientist that's like, okay, I feel like my creation's not in my control anymore, and then we get teased of the some other entities that want this technology for, let's just say, nefarious purposes, and so there's so much conflict there just in issue one. And I really enjoyed it. Now the campaign is for issues 1, 2, and 3, but it mentions going on at least until issue 6. How far do you see the series going?
Well, I kind of write this like when I learn writing, most of it is screenwriting. I don't have any desire to write a movie or anything, but there's just not that much material there about writing comics. So a lot of it, when I'm learning about how to write and create these stories that are kind of really what they call unputdownable, like these stories that kind of just have a momentum and you have to like read them. That all comes from screenwriting and then novel prose writing. So those all come to an end. Like comics kind of go on forever. So I do have an ending. In 6 issue, this is complete. I've been told by my publisher that I should probably not end the story, like end the plot story, but to keep the character stories alive so that there could be a future for it. And that's really for, if you end up killing everyone, you got no place to go.
Right.
So I have to see this from their point of view too, because it's tough to make money in comics, but it's easier if it has a life in other medium. Like if you can continue the story or continue it, or even have like a movie or television version of it, all that has to be available for that should that happen. And in comics more and more that has to be part of the equation, and at least to try to go for that. So there is more. I mean, the story has a very strong, intense lore that can go on for a long time. So we have a lot in mind for it.
Absolutely. And yeah, I hope to see this go on even beyond 6 issues. Now I do know that, we've got some stretch goals for the project. And, stretch goals will see us through, at the very least, covers for the first 6 issues. Now, is there a planned Kickstarter for the second half of the series, or how are we planning to continue?
Yeah. So this Kickstarter covers the first 3 issues. So it takes you to the cliffhanger. And then there's the 3 issues after that conclude the story. So that's going to be a separate Kickstarter. So I'm already drawing those pages now. So yeah, you'll notice that, like, I think you read the first issue and you were saying how there's so much in there. What you're seeing is 3 issues, and I think the normal benchmark for most comics, I think I put about like 6 issues worth of stuff in the 3 issues, and that's just basically using really good storytelling techniques from all that I've learned. I learned a lot from like how the Pixar and Disney would make their movies, and a lot of screenwriters. You really have only 2 hours, and so everything is super compressed because you don't need a lot of extraneous stuff, and you can really double up on scenes where every scene does double or triple duty. So even in that one issue, you saw how much happened. Issue 2 and 3 are more of the same, so it does go very far in those 3 issues.
Nice. That is exciting as well. And so I want to learn a little bit more about our characters. I guess we don't want to spoil anything, but I just think it's worth talking about the layers that the story has. I think especially just looking at the art, it's easy to sort of look at like, okay, what grounds this series? Do you mind just telling us a little bit about, I guess, a couple of our main characters and maybe what motivates them?
Okay, I think you find out, not in the 3 issues, but in issue 4, you find out what really is driving the very complex scientist character. You probably saw that he's a very flawed character. He's driven by a relentless desire for greatness, And he feels like he's been passed over. I think we all know how that feels, like when you think you have the goods, but someone gets promoted ahead of you because, you know, they're drinking buddies with the boss. And you see that happen a lot. And this guy is no different. I mean, he's a little bit maybe awkward in some ways, but he is brilliant. And he thinks that he really deserves to be, you know, man of the year with what he has and what he can bring to the table, but no one sees his brilliance. So, and then he is driven, like he must succeed. And you find out why later on. So he is, because of that relentless drive, he's cutting a lot of corners and doing a lot of ethically sketchy things, turning a blind eye to very dangerous situations he's creating because he's kind of blinded by this need to succeed. And then you throw in there his daughter, which he's been estranged from because he's so not just so into his work, but also doing work that she philosophically doesn't agree with, because she happens to be, you know, if science is sort of like the family business, he's doing his science in his way, and her contribution is she's an activist against science being used against the people by corporations. So she's like like Greenpeace or PETA. They'll go and raid labs and stuff like that and do these things to bring down corporations that are abusing science and harming people. So they're at exact opposite ends of the spectrum. And it's not because they really hate each other. It's just that they find themselves, he's firmly in her crosshairs because of that. And it's sad because they probably used to have a relationship and they need to get back together. But, you know, how can they, can they meet in the middle, or, you know, what's going to have to happen? So she ends up being sort of like the mentor character that kind of points him into a direction of, this is where you need to be a better person that I know you can be. It's one of those type of stories. So yeah, you'll see, you read issue 1, which is a lot of setup. Issue 2, I think that people really like issue 2 because it really does pick up and you meet more people, and then everything really starts to gain a lot of momentum from there. Like the conflicts and the stakes just go through the roof. So I recommend you reading issue 2, even though, because that's where it really starts to take off. So.
Absolutely, I will as soon as we're done. As soon as we're done with this, I just didn't trust myself. But man, it's a beautiful book for one. Can you talk a little bit more about developing the story? I think it's interesting that the book is sort of written from the inside out, so to speak, right? Like you start off with character designs and it's like, okay, well, if I had to tell a story, how would I do it? Is that typically your process, or how you come up with ideas?
I think there's an ideal process. It's not one that I particularly follow for this book, but I think everyone you have to prioritize your story parts. And with science fiction, a lot of times the priority is like cool spaceships and action first. That's really should be the last thing. So up there higher is character, and character really is a very important part of the story, but even more important than that is theme. So, you know, what really drew me to the story in the beginning was probably all the superficial stuff, like the sexy robot girl, the cool ass robot gorilla, and then the military mechs, and then a lot of battles like them fighting. There's going to be a lot of that, but you really can't build a story around that because it intrinsically does not get very exciting. I mean, it's interesting to watch, but you can't watch that for very long.
Right.
So I had to bring in the characters and then also make sure that everything is built around the theme. So that theme is sort of like that philosophical question that kind of runs through the whole story. And I think that's where a lot of writers kind of fall apart, is it's very hard to define what theme is. So don't really know how to use that as a goal. But like in this story, there's a philosophical question about whether it's more important to prioritize success, or is it more important to possibly have an ordinary life, but then be a good family person? So that's the big question, and that's the question that I answer in this story. And also there's a lesser themes, like if something groundbreaking, like the technology they're dealing with here is about the possibility of achieving immortality. Just because you can do it, should you do it? And that's another question. Like, what is the role of science in society? So that's kind of at the heart of every scene, and it's there. And I think that's what propels the story along. That's sort of like the story engine. So
Absolutely. And man, just it's so hard to describe
Yeah,
what this book is.
I agree. I mean, that's been the hardest thing because that's why we kind of give it out. We gave it out to you. We gave it out to
Mhm,
everyone because um, if people are just looking at this Kickstarter, all they see is that there's a comic book artist who,
mhm,
they know what to expect from me because my art's been out there a lot. But then this artist decides to write, and that's usually a red flag because that's not going to end well. Um,
mhm,
and then they'll just kind of back it accordingly. And there's no way we can tell like whether this story is good or not. I would assume that it's not that good because I'm not a seasoned writer.
mhm.
So that's kind of why we give it out, and then hopefully people say, "Oh no, this guy, can write." I mean, there's signs that there's something good going on here, um, and it doesn't help the fact that the story uh, it goes off into some strange places because we have
Mhm,
different settings. So it looks very schizophrenic, which is a very amateur move to a lot of people because they can't connect with everything, and
mhm.
it's just very scattered. But I mean, you read it, so you know that everything is there's a hub that brings everything together.
There
Uh,
is.
yeah,
And
but
I
yeah,
lo-
it's hard to describe.
there's a side character that provides a great context in like just one panel, like explaining why all of these worlds are together, or speculating as to why she believes they're all together. And it's just like, that makes all the sense in the world, but I didn't see it until she pointed it out. Having basically the adult world and the kid world, and how those could be lucrative for different reasons. And it's just like, wow, I didn't even, it didn't connect in my mind until she brought it out there.
Yeah, that's sort of like if you have a story with a lot of creative ideas and concepts, it's going to go over most people's heads. So sometimes you need someone there, like a reporter or something, who's
Mhm.
who kind of just informs the audience, like, all right, here's what's going on here, and
Right.
that way you can enjoy the story more because like you can get lost in the heavy themes, and not really know what's going on. So it's just a way of providing exposition.
Absolutely. So this is a sci-fi story, and we've got robots with gorilla skins. We've got robots in sexy lady skins, um, and we've got this really awesome technology. But what are some of the stories that may have influenced this? Like, what types of things were you thinking about when you brought the story together?
Um, well, it does on the surface look like a lot. It looks like there's some Westworld, there's some Jurassic Park in there, there's some Blade Runner.
Mm,
I can only point to stories that I really love, like Blade Runner, and how they deal with the themes that they put together and they're dealing with. This story is kind of hard to classify because it is like a lot of things, yet it's like nothing else. Because
mm,
I mean, it is also like Avatar because that idea of getting into that control pod in a semi-conscious state and then emerging as another being
right.
instead of being the Navi alien thing, you end up inhabiting a robot and then kind of piloting it from a remote location. So it has elements from other stories, but I think one of the reasons it's very hard to describe is because it is a creative, original idea
Mm,
that where there's not much out there. Like, not that I know of. I'm not tremendously well read, but it seems like a good idea that should have been done a while ago, and maybe it has, but I'm I'm gonna do it anyway. So
no, it's definitely not like anything I've seen before, but it's in a good way, right? It
yeah,
feels familiar and unfamiliar at the same time, right? Like, especially as some of the with the emotional themes, right? Like, it's a story that we can all relate to, even as we're looking at something that we know we'd never see anywhere else.
yeah, I think all the best science fiction does that. I mean, I think what we're wrestling now with AI
Mhm.
and the same kind of fear of that is dealt with in the story with not AI, but with something else. So um, I think the problem with a lot of modern stories now is that there's a little bit of a sameness out there where a lot of the like people getting a little bit of superhero fatigue, and a lot of stories are rehashing things that have been successful in the past. And
Mhm.
I totally get that because taking a big swing in a new original area can be an expensive fail that could really bankrupt the company, or you can like you can be in director's jail for a long time. So
Right.
uh, a lot of times the new ideas are in comics, like independent comics, because it's cheaper to fail. But to come out with something that's new and original and then making it work is the hard part. The key about this making it work, because you can come up with something original and that no one's done before, but you never know if it's never been done before because it's a dumb idea. So this idea I thought was novel and it was creative and it's original and it takes a big swing, but the reason that it works is because I still have to bring all that the traditional storytelling structure and everything to bring it to bear on the story to make sure that it still comes out the other end with a cohesive finished story.
Right. Now, so you talked earlier on about this sort of long shot idea to get Daniel Wu involved, and now he is very much involved. Can you talk us a little bit about what that means to the project and how it's helped things along?
Okay, so like I said, like the main danger in writing a science fiction story is to get focused on plot and action because it's so enticing. It's like candy. But I was really a fan of Blade Runner because there's a human story. There's a lot of character development in it. So if you bring in an actor, particularly like with someone like Daniel Wu, actors are intrinsically attuned to motivation and character. It's because it's their job, because they have to make a really good nuanced performance. And they have to always examine beyond what the writer's written about like the person's backstory. So having someone like that on board just brings the human element into the story. And you can kind of see when you're reading it that the characters are, you can feel what they're going through, their stakes and the conflict that they're dealing with. And all the action that's happening outside is just basically, it's not so much the action for action's sake. It's basically there to show their feelings about what's going on is what's important. So, you bring in a person like Daniel Wu and he can really help inform how the character should be portrayed and how to tell a compelling story through a character's point of view.
Awesome. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, right? Like Daniel Wu is an iconic, Asian American actor, and you're an Asian artist as well. What does it mean to you to be able to tell a story in this way on such a grand scale? And does it mean anything in particular to have this creative team?
We didn't really set out to. I mean, I'm very much collaborating with my publisher, Carl Choi. I let him kind of call the shots in terms of what the title is and how these characters look. Those things are less important to me. More important to me is character and theme and point of view. All that stuff is like the writing stuff is that is kind of agnostic. That stuff is, we just ended up with an all Asian creative team, and then even like the main characters are Asian, and it just ended up that way. And you can see in the story there's no the Asian people, even though they're scientists, they're not martial arts people, and they're not played into tropes, So my concern is just to tell the story in the best way possible, and for me it's largely agnostic in that a hero or villain can be of any race. Which is kind of a bold thing to say because not so much about the hero, but the villain can be any race.
Right. Right.
So, and then that is a bit of a going out on the ledge if you're going to do that because there's so much meaning behind it. But for me, it's just characters just ended up who they were just organically, and it's so we don't get on. We don't deal with race in a very getting up on a soapbox way. It's just the fact that there are just a lot of Asians in this story.
Right. Yeah, I mean, people are people, and people make art, and it's going to reflect, the world around us. It should, that is. So I think that's totally on par. But all in all, man, like I said, EVERMIND 1 through 3, this campaign ends in about a week. Let me just show you guys a bit of a preview one more time as I'm scrolling through this Kickstarter. So right here, this is a shot from issue 1, where we are in the underworld, as they're calling it. And so this is like you said, like the Las Vegas type environment. We've got a taste of some military action, a big military mech suit that's piloted by like this avatar-like system where you can upload your consciousness into this suit, which is awesome. And then I love this character, the skeptical human that's like, I'm not really here for it, but I've got my own motivation, so let's roll.
Yeah, yeah. And they're surprisingly, like him and his partner, like they're surprisingly smart for a bunch of soldiers. And it's just so that you don't typecast people. And yeah, it's surprisingly very sympathetic for what happens to them. It's a kind of a very exciting thing. And yeah, they've been dealt a bad hand, and they have to deal with it. And I think you'll be interested to see where it goes. Like I think in issue 2 and 3, you'll see just kind of like where this is all going.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to dig into this even further. So you guys, we've got 7 days left at the time this video goes live. We're trying to get to this stretch goal, and I haven't even talked a lot about the rewards, right? So let's skip down to the rewards. So there's a bunch of backer tiers. So you could back as low as $2 just to say thanks and follow along the progress. I would recommend at the very least backing at tier 2 so you can get this book. You get the digital editions of EVERMIND issues 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
And then
that's digital only. So then yeah, the next tier is the physical books, all 3 of them, and the digital together for $35.
Nice.
And that's probably the most popular tier because you get one to sign and put on your bookshelf and one to read on your computer.
Right. And these are like just standard it's like floppy comics, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. And so at tier 4, we've got EVERMIND 1 through 3 artist editions. So
this is my favorite. It's just basically the book in black and white form because I'm writing the story, so there's like a lot of word balloons that cover some of the backgrounds that I make. So there's a lot of also delicate black and white ink hatching and shading that I do. It gets varied by the color and then also varied by word balloons. So this is one where you can look at the ink artwork. People seem to really like a lot. And then you also get the PDF so you can read the full color comic. So this is, my favorite tier,
Awesome. So this is just the inks, no word balloons, no nothing to cover it up. Just beautiful art. That's awesome. And then you can back at tier 5, you can get the regular full color edition, the artist edition, and the PDFs for $85, which is an awesome deal. And then we've got a bunch of other tiers, right? You can add CGC comics. You can add original art. Like, man, you guys went all out for this campaign.
I worked for a long time for Marvel and DC, so I have a lot of artwork saved up. So at tier 6, you get some of that artwork. I'm not sure how they select it, but it's all with my publisher now. And then you get some original from Iron Man, Wolverine, X-Men, and Nova, Elektra. It's all in there. And
wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So tier 6.5, you've got more signatures, and then you get a signature for the artist edition, and it's CGC, guaranteed a 9.8.
Yeah. So Daniel Wu's signature is that's the that's the one you want.
And then the design vault. Oh wow! So you get character designs and turnarounds.
Yeah, those are from Marvel characters because I spent like a good year or 2 working for Marvel in their creative service division. So my job was to draw the standard look for all the characters, and then that would be sent out to all the other artists to do their own take on it. So it was just basically what they call the evergreen version, like how Captain America looks, whereas costume, as proportions and everything, I would draw it first, and then it would go to the people who do like the lunch boxes and underoos, and then other artists, so they can basically keep everything on brand. So you don't like put 2 stars on Captain America's chest. It's always just that one and drawn that way. It's just to standardize it. So I did all that, and then they gave me a lot of the artwork back. So there's a lot of those 3 view turnarounds that are all thrown in there too.
Wow, that is awesome. And now let's talk about this box set.
Yeah, this one, these are kind of new. My publisher put them out, so I haven't really looked at in detail what they are, what's involved. But it probably has, a lot of cool stuff, and then more like Daniel's signature, and then the CGC's involved to make sure it's a, CGC, and it's kind of sealed permanently.
Right, and oh wow, and then you get a print of the cover for issue 3.
Oh yeah,
but just the artboard version. That's really cool. And then this tier 9 is CGC signature edition with Sean and Daniel's signatures on all 6 issues. So the 3 initial issues and then the 3 artist edition issues, all signed in CGC 9/8. That's amazing. And then the rest of these tiers are sold out. So
yeah, those are the earlier tiers. Yeah.
Got you, man. So there are a lot of different ways for you to join this train. There's plenty of inventory left. It looks like even for the comic art fans bundle, right? So the original art from Sean's time at Marvel, there's plenty of that still available. Looks like there'd be 100 pieces available. And at the time of recording, there are 92 left. So jump on that, because like I said, this will come out like 2 days after this. So who knows how many will be left when they see this. But man, all in all, man, this is a really exciting campaign. Like I said, I got a chance to read the first issue, and when we're done recording, I get to read issues 2 and 3, and you guys will be the ones missing out unless you back this Kickstarter. So definitely do that. Sean, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed talking to you, man.
Oh yeah, thanks a lot. It's a lot of fun, and thanks for letting me have this platform to kind of show the world what we've created. And I hope you all check it out and kind of join in all the fun. So this is the beginning of a storyline that's probably going to go places. So you can get in on the ground floor. So.
Absolutely. So I will leave you guys with the Kickstarter preview for EVERMIND issues 1, 2, and 3. Thanks for your time, and make sure you read something dope today. Peace.
Right. Thanks a lot.
When I used to close my eyes and dream of the future, I would envision a utopia, a world united by human innovation. But now, all I see is greed. I am Frankenstein, and my monster is my technology. Neuralink, a highly complex system that allows our consciousness to be uploaded into any instrument we can imagine. I should have known those instruments would be used for destruction, with evil agencies using it for their quest to power. I, Lucas Zhang, must put an end to my creation, no matter the cost. As I always say, the future is in your hands.
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel Wu from Into the Badlands, Westworld, and Disney's American-born Chinese. I am super excited to announce the official launch of the EVERMIND comic book Kickstarter campaign. You may have noticed in the exclusive comic preview that Lucas Zhang kind of looks like me. Well, that was no accident. EVERMIND creator CHEN based the character off my likeness, so it feels fitting to officially be on the team. Being a co-creator of an epic comic series has always been a goal of mine, and I cannot wait to go on this journey with you all. So, what is EVERMIND about? EVERMIND is a science fiction graphic novel set in a dystopian near future that follows a famous scientist, Lucas Zhang, and his discovery of a revolutionary technology that changes the world called Neuralink. With this new ability to transfer human consciousness into advanced machines, Lucas unintentionally creates an arms race among several evil corporations. So as the Oppenheimer of his time, Lucas makes it his mission to ensure that his tech doesn't fall into the wrong hands, even if that means using it on himself. So I am honored and excited to be a part of EVERMIND. We have an amazing group of talented individuals who will bring this title to life, and we have big aspirations to bring this to television, film, animation, and even video games. The opportunities ahead are endless. I look forward to being a part of this community, and I thank you all for your support. And remember,
the future is in your hands.